Welcome back. All right, so I went and fixed up the wood wall from the previous clip that we just did, where we created the variations in the wood planks. So the reason was because when I got rid of that copy and transform node, some of these other nodes were hooked into it. So I just had to change the name in the expressions to for each end one, and everything came back. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start working on the high-res version of this particular wood wall. So I've gone ahead and I've actually created an example, and I'm going to walk you through all the steps here. So if we take a look at our wood wall high node here, I went through and added some high-res details to the wood wall, and I'm also going to show you in a future video how to bake this all out into texture maps that we can use in Substance Painter, or you can use straight up in your game as well. So what I want to do is show you guys how I went about creating the high-res version for this particular model. So let's get started. I'm going to hide this one. All right, so what I want to do is I want to create a new geometry node, and I don't want to hook it up. And I'm going to call this the wood wall high video. All right. And I'm going to jump inside, and the first thing I want to do is I want to get the components of the wood wall, the game res version. So basically I'm going to drop down an object merge node, and I'm going to go grab, so let's go grab the wood wall game. All right, perfect. So the first thing I want to do is I need to start to separate this out into individual components. So I just want to work on the wood wall portion. I want to work on just the posts, and I want to work on just the bolts. Okay. So what I did, without actually showing you guys, because it's pretty easy, I don't think I need to actually show it. But what I did is for each of the components, I just created a group over here. So I just called that wood planks, and it just what it's going to let me do is actually blast away the geometry so I can work on just individual parts. Okay, so let's go into this guy here, and what I want to do, I need to make sure I have the last node selected here. There we go. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the planks and stuff. So this is going to be the full wall right here. So this is the object merge node. And what I want to do then is do a blast, and let's say we're going to get the wood planks. We'll reverse that. All right, so get planks, and let's just copy and paste this, and we'll change this to the posts. There we go. We'll say get post. All right, and we'll copy it one more time, and we'll get the bolts. Just like so. Awesome. Okay, so now we have the wall broken into its individual pieces. So let's start with the planks. Okay, so I'm a big fan whenever I do the high-res modeling inside of Houdini. I mean, I still do use ZBrush and Maya and stuff like that every so often, but I am actually starting to do this more and more inside of Houdini as there's more functionality being put in, and things like VDBs. So I'm a big fan of using VDBs when I do the high-res modeling inside of Houdini. So what I'm going to do is drop down a VDB from polygons, and what this does is it transforms it into like a volume. So I'm going to change the resolution on this to something like 0.01, and this is a pretty cool feature, is you can change the resolution, right, and then basically convert it back to, where's the convert VDB to polygons, right? And this is super useful for so many reasons. Cool. Anyways, so what I want is a lot more resolution, so I'm going to increase this to something like 0.002. That should basically make it look pretty much like the original. It's pretty good right there. So awesome. And you'll notice that now that we're converting it using a VDB convert or convert VDB node, we have tons of information, or tons of polygons now. So what I'm going to do is drop down a point bop node, Because all I really want to do for this particular object or component of this wood wall is put the wood grain on it. All right. So I'm going to do that. So let's go and put the wood grain on this. For that, what I'm going to do is use the veins node, and I'm going to pass in the position, the current point's position, into that veins node. And let's just take a look at the output for that. So if we use the color node, or the color option right here, and let's just play around with some of these properties. So we have a projection type, okay, linear, cylindrical, and spherical. Okay, I'm going to keep it on linear for now. Then we have the vein offset, so we can actually move the veins around. We have vein direction, and so this is basically the direction that the veins are flowing. Whoops. So we change this guy. There we go. So now it's flowing in the Y direction. And now the Z direction. So I'm going to leave it on the Y. All right. So then we have vein spacing. And this allows us to create lots more little tiny veins, which is pretty much exactly what I want from a wood standpoint. So you can keep going as far as you'd like there. And we have attenuation, usual, so that you can get different wood looks this way. It's pretty cool. And then the frequency of those veins. It just helps you further cater the design. So what I want to do now is change the frequency in the X direction here. Just kind of stretch these out a little bit. And you'll notice now I'm getting something that feels more like wood. And we could stretch it down or push it down a little bit too. There we go. All right. I actually like that. So I think we're going to go with that for this particular look. So at this point, all I'm going to do is utilize the displace along normal node, feed in the original position, feed in the current normal, and then feed in the amount. Boom! So what we need to do is just drop the scale down to something like 0.01. And let's remove the color. There we go. So now we're going to have to expose this value, the scale value, because this is what's giving us that wood look. So I'm actually going to make it go in the negative direction. There we go. That actually looks like pretty good wood planks, if I do say so myself. All right, so I could have gone into ZBrush and sculpted it. In fact, you could even export this out, right? Start processing it through ZBrush, and it'll just speed up your workflows. So another reason to start, using this in your modeling workflows. It's just a lot easier and faster. Okay, so now we have the wood planks taken care of. We just need to pretty much do the same thing for the wood posts and also for the bolts. And the bolts are going to be a little bit different because I'm just going to apply a little bit of turbulent noise to those guys. So let's actually go take care of those guys now, since we've already seen the wood in there. So I want to convert them into a high res model first. So I just get that base high res model, and you'll notice that the bolts by default, if we take a look at them, I removed the backs of them, for very good reasons. I'm not going to need to render those in game. So what I need to do is get them back into fully enclosed mesh. And so what I want to do is use the polyfill, right? And because we're just making the high-res model, this is fine. And we still have the low-res model in the other node over here. So everything's still fine. It's still the same. I'm just using this to cap off the back. So just put it to single polygon, and then it'll work with the VDBs. It just needs to be enclosed. And there we go. So now we've got a high-res bolt. It's not too shabby. We need to definitely increase the resolution on that. See how that looks? We're going to go to 0.0001. See how that looks? It's probably way too much. So you start to notice that it will tax your computer the more you add, obviously. There we go. That is super sharp. So thank God that is too much. All right. That should be better. Yeah, that's better. Cool. All right, so then let's go and drop down a point VOP, and let's just mess around with just giving it a little bit of variation for each, maybe some corrosion or something like that. The nice thing that we can do is we can give ourselves some curvature information. So if we use this game dev measure curvature, like so this might take a little bit. We can visualize this. We need to auto calculate. There we go. And then we can visualize this color. And we could leave it as the multicolor. So we can start to mess around with these values here. So now we're getting the curvature information. I'm going to blur out the convex stuff now. There we go. That's kind of what I wanted. You can also use this for color information as well. Alrighty. Again, I could play around with these things all day. Okay, so I think you guys get the idea. So I can use those different masks inside of this. So let's go into the point VOP here, and let's just do a global pass. So let's drop down like something like an AA noise. So I'm going to do AA noise, anti-aliased noise, and we'll pass in the position, and we need that displace along normal. So we'll say displace along normal. Bring in the current position of the point and the normal. We'll give this the amount. And there we go. So I have to get it all set up first and then drop the scale down. All right, perfect. So that is kind of what I'm looking for. I just want to perturb the surface a little bit. So we can change the roughness maybe a little bit. Now that's too much, yeah? Just a little bit. And maybe change the frequency. I wanted to do that globally there. There we go. That's looking pretty cool. So from a nice global pass. So then what we can do, we'll do some turbulent noise in the green areas. So let's go and get the color. So I'm going to split the color up. So we're going to drop down a vector to float. Get the color. And let's just make sure that I think the edges were in green. Yep. Okay, cool. So now what I want to do is just inside of the wider areas there, I'm going to put in a turbulent noise. Just kind of damage up the edges a little bit. Okay, and we'll multiply this. So I'm going to multiply the turbulent noise by the vertex color there, those edges. And then we need to add this together to the base noise here, this anti-aliased noise. Cool. You know, it's very similar to working with the noises inside of Substance Designer. Whoops. Did not want to hook that up like that. Okay. So now I can change the amplitude just to see where there we go. So now we're starting to get some interesting shapes, and we can change the type of noise that we're using too. Let's change the frequency. That's weird. Let's do 0.01, 0.01. Whoops. As you can see, it can go really crazy pretty quickly. Let's take a look at some of these others. It's weird that the frequency isn't really giving me much there. Anyways, I'm going to call that good for now. And I like how it just went and perturbed it just a little bit. We can also do the complement of that. just to move the video along here, as you can see, you can play around with this stuff for days. The nice thing too is then you can save it out, and you get basically a nice little filter to use. And that went the wrong way there. It's weird that the frequency isn't working, but I must have just missed something. Alright, so I'm just going to do that. So I just wanted to actually reverse it. There we go. Okay. Cool. So I'm going to call that good for now, just to save time here, and play around with the scale a little bit more. So I'm kind of digging that. So we will leave that at that. So now all of our bolts are ready to go, and the last thing we really need to do is do the post. So I'm going to do this really quickly here, and I'm literally just going to actually, why don't we do it in the next video? How about that? Because I feel like this one has gone on for enough time. So let's give our eyes a break. And what we're going to do in the next video is finish up the post. So let's take a look. We're going to detail these guys out. Okay? Thanks so much.